Hey everybody, so in today's video we're going to be talking about central or main idea. Now with central and main idea, what we really want to just be looking at the main focus of the text. Like, what is the text about? All right. And another way to look at it is it's the essential idea or ideas that help you understand the passage. So for your first little section here, I need you to copy down both this and this. There are going to be your two bullets here in the first part of your notes. And then if we move on to supporting ideas, these are going to be what supports your main idea. So the details and facts that support and develop the central idea. Okay. And supporting ideas sometimes can seem like the main idea, but oftentimes they're missing a component. They're not getting the whole picture. It's just a piece of the text. So there's going to be 4 steps that we're going to look at when it comes to identifying the main idea. And with these 4 steps, I'm going to be pulling small groups today, and I will see all of you just discussing each of the 4 steps and how I want you to start doing them every time you're at least asked to find the main idea. And yes, it is time consuming. It is, but it always pays off, believe me. So the first step to me is the easiest: before you read. So before you read, and make sure that when you are doing this part, I should have step 1 in your notes, step 2, step 3, step 4, and they're in italics. And so you need to write this after step 1. This should be step 1. Pay attention to text features. It should not just be step 1, 2, 3, and 4. I need you to know what step 1 is. There's going to be an assignment that comes after all of this in which you will fill out an anchor chart listing up the steps for me. So you need to know them. So before you read, circle the title, of course, number 1. Easiest thing to do. What does that title say? And if it's like something like fishes, we can expect to not be reading about ladybugs, right? Number 2, highlight the headings and subheadings. These are just the things that come after the title. Again, will help us to better understand what the text is about. And finally, read the captions of the pictures. Now, when it comes to this thing, sometimes we're not going to always have captions, and we're not always going to have pictures, so you ignore that part. Sometimes we're not going to have headings and subheadings, so you're going to ignore that part. Most of the time, we're going to have a title, but sometimes we may not, and you're going to go ahead and ignore that part. So this is just before you read, just kind of getting an idea of what the text is about, making a prediction even before you start reading. Your second step, and again, remember to write down, determine the structure of the text. We've done text structures before. So before you go into actually trying to find the main idea, what I want you to do is just go through and read and tell me, or tell yourself, at least at the time, what do you think, how do you think the structure is textured? How did the author structure this text, right? And sometimes there's going to be more than one structure, but it's still a good way to a good rule of thumb to just practice that. Now, step 3, identify the big ideas. Now, this is not necessarily the big idea of the entire text, right? So after you read each section, ask yourself, what is the big idea from this section? And then jot that down. Could be a hashtag summary, could be a short little thing here or there, and then highlight details and evidence that support the big idea in each section. So at this point, at this juncture, this is where you're going to start annotating as you are reading, right? We've already kind of started with highlighting and underlining and circling and writing out the text structure, but here, like after each section, so when I call a section, it depends on how you want to section it. If it's a really short text, that section might be after each paragraph. If it's a really long text, that section could be after a grouping of paragraphs or after a heading or subheading. So it just depends on what that looks like. And we're going to break that down. We're going to do that together in small groups, so don't worry about that. But right now, just having that idea of what that should look like. So that's your third step. And again, remember, make sure you're writing this after the italicized step 3. Identify big ideas. And all of this, every single thing that you see here should be written in your notes. Finally, your last step, locate the thesis statement. Now, we're going to do thesis statements in this third 9 weeks. We haven't quite gotten to them yet, so it may be harder for us to identify this. But after you read, after you've identified kind of the main idea of each section, go back to the introduction and conclusion paragraphs, so the first paragraph and the last paragraph, and oftentimes there is a sentence in there that explains what the passage is going to be about. It usually comes at the end of the first paragraph or the first section, and then it'll be restated in the last paragraph or the last section. Highlight that sentence, and we'll practice this again in small group, and then we're going to work on writing our own thesis statements. So number 1, review your annotations. Number 2, make sure you understand the topic of the text, and the title should help you kind of understand what the topic of the text is about. And then number 3, ask yourself, what is being said about the person, the thing, or idea? And then this will be the central idea of the passage. So what are we saying about what's going on in this passage? What are we talking about when it comes here? And it's so important that we begin annotating. I know it's that extra work, it's that extra step, but we need to make sure that we are doing it. We need to make sure that we are annotating. So how do I write that central idea? So this is going to include the title of the article. So when you write the central idea, I don't need to say it talked about or it said this. Remember back to our RTQT, you have to restate these things. Pretend that the reader who's reading your central idea, your main idea, has never read the article. Number 2, a summary action words. This isn't an entire summary. This is just one action word, right? So this article on ladybugs shows or describes or explains or discusses or lists or explores, etc., etc., etc. Most of the time, shows, describes, and explains will work. Sometimes you might want to do something else. Maybe it is teaching. Maybe it is illustrating. Maybe it is stating. It just depends. These are not an end-all, be-all, but I would like you to memorize or at least some of these and know what they are. And then after you've done those two things, then you write out your central idea. Your central idea should not be longer than 1 sentence. It should be very short, straight and to the point, and you should not include your opinions. So here we're going to see 3 practices, right? We're going to talk about them and work on them as a class today. The main important thing that happens is you get these notes down. And as always, if you need anything from me or have any questions, please just do not hesitate to ask. All right, bye everybody.